Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek, What We Can Learn. All right, you brilliant lot. Emily Bennett here, and today we're diving into something that's been rattling around in my brain for a while. Leadership. Now, if you know me, you'll know I'm obsessed with understanding what makes a great leader. And recently, I've been rereading Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. Let me tell you, it's packed with insights that aren't just for CEOs or politicians. It's for anyone looking to lead, whether in business, at home, or even just in your social circles. It took me back to my time in Cambridge, Massachusetts, when I was doing my master's at Harvard. Now, Harvard's known for grooming future leaders, right? But let me tell you, some of the best lessons in leadership I learned didn't come from lecture halls. They came from living in the Harvard hostel. Picture it. A bunch of us, from all different backgrounds, living in this massive old-school building, trying to juggle the pressure of academia, late-night study sessions, and, if I'm being honest, the occasional bit of chaos. It was in that environment, where we were all a bit vulnerable and figuring things out, that I saw firsthand what real leadership looks like. It's not about barking orders or showing off. It's about taking care of others first. And that, my friends, is the heart of Leaders Eat Last. So grab a cuppa and let's break down what Simon Sinek's book can teach us about true leadership through the lens of my Harvard hostel days, a bit of personal experience, and a good dose of British banter. 1. The circle of safety. Building trust is everything. One of the big ideas in Leaders Eat Last is the circle of safety. It's all about creating an environment where people feel safe, valued, and looked after. Sinek says that great leaders build this circle to protect their team, and in return, the team will go above and beyond for them. Let me give you a Harvard example. In the hostel, we were all far from home, dealing with the pressure of assignments, internships, and future careers looming. There was this one time, right before exams, when stress levels were through the roof. One of the guys, let's call him Mark, took it upon himself to organize a mini study group for those of us who were struggling. He didn't have to, mind you. He could have just focused on his own work. But by doing that, he created a sense of trust. We all felt safer knowing someone had our backs, and in return, we helped each other out during those stressful weeks. That's exactly what Sinek talks about. Leaders protect their people, even when it's not convenient. It's not about being soft. It's about knowing that when people feel safe, they perform better. And whether you're leading a team at work or just trying to get through a group project, that's a game changer. 2. Leaders Eat Last. Prioritize your people. Now, let's get into the title of the book, Leaders Eat Last. The idea comes from military traditions where the officers eat after their troops. It's a literal representation of putting others first, which, let's face it, is something a lot of leaders forget about when they get caught up in power and perks. Back at Harvard, I had this professor who was an absolute legend. He was always the last one to leave the classroom, staying late to chat with students and answer questions. You could tell he genuinely cared about us, not just as students, but as people. One night, after a long seminar, a few of us were knackered and ready to head back to the hostel, but the professor hung back to make sure one of the students who was struggling was okay. He didn't have to, but that's what true leadership looks like. Sinek argues that real leaders put their team's needs ahead of their own. And let me tell you, the impact is huge. People want to feel valued. They want to know their leader is there for them, not just barking orders or taking the credit when things go right. It's a small shift in mindset, but when you make it, you'll notice a massive difference in how people respond to you. 3. Chemicals of leadership, balancing dopamine and serotonin. Right. So, Sinek gets a bit scientific in this book, which I absolutely love. He talks about the chemicals in our brains that influence behavior, dopamine and serotonin, and how leaders can balance these to create a healthy work environment. Dopamine is that hit we get when we achieve something. It's what drives us to set goals and chase after success. But the catch is, too much dopamine makes us selfish. We become focused on personal rewards, and that's when leadership can go wrong. On the other hand, serotonin is what Sinek calls the leadership chemical. It's the feel-good hormone we get when we feel respected and connected to others. Leaders who foster serotonin create that circle of safety I mentioned earlier, where everyone feels like they belong. I saw this dynamic play out in Harvard, especially when we were prepping for big presentations. You'd get a hit of dopamine when you nailed your part, but the real magic happened when we all celebrated each other's success. I remember one of my mates, Lucy, crushed her presentation, and instead of just basking in the glory, she made sure to highlight the work everyone else had done. That's serotonin in action. It's what makes people feel valued and seen. As a leader, it's your job to balance both, encourage the dopamine drive for success, but also foster that serotonin connection that builds trust and loyalty. 4. The impact of cortisol. Avoid leading with fear. Let's talk about cortisol, the stress hormone. Sinek points out that when leaders use fear and stress to control their teams, they increase cortisol levels, which leads to burnout and disengagement. No one performs well when they're constantly stressed out, and leaders who rule through fear are just setting themselves up for failure. During my time in the Harvard hostel, I had this one group project where our leader thought the only way to get things done was by stressing us all out. Every meeting was a pressure cooker. She'd constantly remind us how much we were behind schedule, how important this was for our grades, and it got to the point where no one wanted to even turn up to the meetings. Eventually, we fell apart, and our project didn't turn out nearly as well as it could have. Compare that to another group where the leader made it clear that we were in this together, and even though the pressure was still there, we felt supported. We worked harder because we knew someone had our back, and as a result, the project was a success. Sinek's point? Leaders who focus on fostering a positive environment, not one filled with fear, get the best results. You don't need to be a drill sergeant to be effective. In fact, the best leaders are the ones who reduce stress, not pile it on. 5. Leadership is a choice, not a rank. Finally, one of the biggest takeaways from Leaders Eat Last is that leadership isn't about your job title. It's a choice you make every day. Whether you're a CEO, a manager, or just part of a team, you can choose to lead by example and put others first. I remember one time in the hostel when the hot water ran out. Classic student problems, right? Everyone was grumbling, trying to figure out what to do. But there was this one girl who stepped up, organized a rota, and got in touch with the maintenance team to sort it out. She wasn't officially in charge of anything, but she chose to lead, and that's what made all the difference. Sinek's message is simple. Anyone can be a leader. It's about taking responsibility for those around you, protecting your circle, and making sure everyone's got what they need to succeed. So, there you have it, some key takeaways from Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek, with a sprinkle of my own experiences from Harvard hostel life. Whether you're leading a team at work, running your own business, or just trying to be a better mate, the principles in this book are pure gold. What do you think? How do you lead in your life? Drop me a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights on leadership, business, and everything in between. Cheers for watching, and remember, true leaders eat last.